Hello and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul. Justin Baker, co-host via Skype. Justin, how's it going tonight?
Good. And how's your evening been?
Oh, just dandy. Just about to run through for you on today's show the playoff races in every division. We will talk about the wild card, but I think at this stage in the game, it's worth just talking about each race as a divisional race. Because most of the divisions, especially towards the bottom, are pretty close. There's some pretty good races there as it is anyways for the 3 spot. And so I think every single division, other than the Pacific Division, has a team within 2 points of third place below third place, whether it's fourth or fifth even. There's some good races going on. So let's kick this off. And first off, just talk about how the Leafs had 55 shots on goal against the Rangers and lost 4-1. It was one of the stupidest games because in the first period they had 2 power plays. I don't know if you caught any of this. This is just one stat that something that doesn't happen often. 2 power plays early in the game, and they had 14 shots on the power play between those 2 power plays.
Wow. Did not know that one.
And I think they had another 4 on the next one and 4 or 5 on the next one. So, yeah, they had, more than half their shots were on the power play. But Georgiev, I think is his name on the Rangers. Yeah,
the birthday boy.
Yes. It was he's only like the third player in history to have over 50 saves on his birthday.
That's pretty impressive.
So there's your random stat there. But 55 shots and you lose 4-1. That's very, very unusual. You're just watching the game, and in the first period, I was like, they're not going to score. Like they're gonna, they scored the one, Kapanen had it, and after that, it was just they're not going to score. I have a weird feeling about this game that they're just going to be all over them, and the Rangers are going to find their way. And sure enough, even Adam freaking McQuaid scored for the Rangers.
Yeah, that never happens.
So anyways, let's dive right into, speaking of the Leafs, good transition into the Atlantic Division where, of course, the Tampa Bay Lightning are far and ahead. I don't think anyone can catch them, especially at this point with about 20. We're at about 25 to 28 games left in the season for most teams. Actually, I think every team is between 20, 24, 25, and 28. Yeah, so it's... Tampa Bay, nobody's going to catch them. They're also not going to go on some crazy losing streak to where they could be caught, I don't think. So really we're talking the Leafs, maybe the most interesting division in terms of the 2, 3, 4. You got the Leafs with 71, the Bruins 70, and the Habs with 69 points, who 7-1-2 in their last 10, and they have come from out of nowhere, blowing ahead of Buffalo, who now Buffalo with 61 points is in the 5. I'd say that they're pretty close to being completely out of it. They, of course, still have a chance, but it's just not looking like they're going to be able to put that together. But I think this is where we expected Buffalo. So let's start at the bottom, the Buffalo Sabres. And do you feel like there's a chance that they could come back in this?
I think there's a chance they could come back for the wild card, but in terms of the 3 spot in the division, they're too far out of it at this point. I think Montreal is playing some good hockey right now, and I think Buffalo, to be quite honest, is right where we figured they would be, right? They shocked everybody when they were, in the top 3, positions there in the Atlantic for a while, and they had caught fire, right? And they seemed like they could never lose for some reason. I don't know how long that stretch was where they were on fire. But then, of course, they came right back down to earth, and I think Jeff Skinner stopped scoring every single game, and they're right where we thought they were. And to be quite honest, I think this is good for this team. This will be good for their growth or development because they've got quite a few more years of some goodness in them. And I think right now, the 5 spot is going to be perfect for them.
Yeah, and I do. Of course, there's a chance that they go and they get the wild card. Pittsburgh right now 2 points ahead of them. With no games in hand or anything. Carolina is the only team in between them with 62 points. It just doesn't seem likely to me that Buffalo surpasses Pittsburgh. Like in my mind, Pittsburgh's going to figure this thing out. They're on a 3-6-1 run right now. They're not playing that great, but it's Pittsburgh. It's tough to bet against them at this point.
No, absolutely. And when it comes down to it, I mean, those guys know how to win, right? They've been there before. They know what they're doing, and they're going to find a way to win. I think the only thing that might hinder Pittsburgh at all is going to be the goaltending, really. I mean, I don't really know what's going on, who's going to be the starter the next minute here, so we'll see what goes on with that situation.
Yes, and we will get to everything Pittsburgh as we move to the Metro next, but let's talk. Okay, so I mean, right now between second and fourth, 2 points separate these teams. The Leafs have one game in hand on Boston and Montreal. Saturday they were able to beat Montreal 4-3. And that was, as close as that game could have gotten. Montreal led late, and it goes to overtime. So those two teams look really good. Boston looks good, and none of these teams look like they're slowing down at this point. They're all starting to ramp up a little bit. And so, to me, is it more a question who does what at the deadline that kind of tips the scales a little bit? Because, I mean, I don't think it's unfair to say that any of these teams in 10 games from now, that this order could be completely flipped on its head.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I think Boston is going to definitely be the more aggressive team at the deadline here, and I think it's not going to shock me if they go out and try to acquire a top six winger or forward here, so that they can kind of separate themselves from Montreal. And if I'm Montreal too, I mean, let's face it, nobody expected them to even be in the race or securing a possible number 3 spot in this division. I mean, granted, a Toronto-Montreal first-round matchup would be just fantastic.
That would be a beauty, wouldn't it? The last time they played each other in the playoffs, 1967.
Yeah.
The last time the Leafs won the Cup.
Insane. So, honestly, if you're Montreal, don't sacrifice the future to try to, push, because to be quite honest, I think this team is good enough, especially at the back end. Carey Price continues to play well here. I think with Shea Weber healthy, they'll be good enough to get in, maybe push for, a first round victory. That's a stretch in my opinion, but nonetheless, I think it would be great for them to get in, especially for a lot of their younger players like Kokiniemi, Druin. These guys get in there, get some playoff experience, and then, ramp up for next year and see where we go.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Montreal, you look and you go, okay, they've got Carey Price, and if Carey Price is playing the way he's playing right now, I think that you've got to think that they always have a chance to win a round.
Right.
But I think that you're right. It's unlikely over a 7-game series that they can match either Boston or Toronto, and it's almost a certainty that they would. If they get into that 3 spot, that's who they'd play likely. But if they make that wild card spot and they end up having to play either Tampa Bay or there maybe is a chance if they play let's say the New York Islanders, then maybe it's a little bit more even of a series, because the Islanders are really doing this defensively, and maybe in a defensive battle, Montreal with good goaltending and the back end that they have, you're right, they might be able to surprise people in an opening round. As far as the Boston Bruins and the Leafs go, who do you think is going to ultimately end up with that home ice advantage? Do you think that the Bruins and the Leafs will be playing each other again in the playoffs, or will Montreal ultimately find their way in and kind of mix that matchup up? Because let's say the Leafs fall out and they end up in a wild card spot. Even a Boston Montreal matchup be very classic as well. Those two teams have gone to battle many times.
Yeah, anytime you get an original 6, it's great. But to me, I agree with you. I think it's Toronto-Boston here in the 2-3 spot. And I do think when push comes to shove here, Toronto's going to secure home ice, mainly because, this is a scoring league. And I think Toronto's got the upper hand when it comes to scoring. Their forwards are a lot more potent on the offensive side of the puck. And, I think right now, goaltending-wise, Frederik Andersen, he's great. I hope that, I like what I've seen out of Jake Muzzin so far, and I think things will only solidify themselves back there a little bit better for Toronto, and I think that'll secure the number 2 spot here.
All right. Yeah, I would agree. I think the Leafs will, they were so far ahead of everyone else, and then they had a really rough basically William Nylander came back and it threw a wrench in everything for whatever reason. It defies logic, but they struggled as a unit, and I think they're starting to find their stride again. I mean, even with, when you lose, you get 55 shots on goal, you expect to win, and they didn't. But if they hadn't, you'd be looking at a 7-2-1 record over the last 10. I mean, they have played very well, dominated most of the teams that they've played. Or when they haven't, they've managed to find a way to score late goals and push games to overtime and do what they need to do to pick up more points. I think that will continue, and I think that they're only going to continue to kind of grow and rise as a team. And I could see them maybe acquiring someone, who has a very minimal salary for the rest of the year. I don't see them going out and acquiring somebody big, but potentially a fourth line guy. Although, I mean, Brian Boyle just went for a second round pick, and I don't think the Leafs are going to want to give up a second round pick for anybody of that caliber because it's not worth it in my mind.
No, but I have been hearing Luke Glendenning's name float around a little bit, and I know Babcock's got a thing for him, so that one wouldn't shock me. And I think you could probably get him at a very reasonable price, maybe a conditional fourth round pick.
Yeah, which I mean, something like that would be totally fine. That's a good depth move. I do think that Lindholm is just starting to kind of figure out this league a little bit more. He's never going to score you any goals, but he at least that fourth line for Toronto has been playing much better, and they just got Tyler Ennis activated off IR, which, if you remember earlier in the season before he broke his ankle, Tyler Ennis was rolling. He was playing really well, and a guy that you can move up and down the lineup and he'll play just fine. And so maybe their trade deadline acquisition is really just getting him back, providing some depth at that forward group, and away you go. Not to mention the fact that they have Trevor Moore in the AHL and some other guys who have played some platoon time with this team. And so I don't necessarily think they need a new fourth line something. So my guess is, now that I'm thinking more about it, maybe unless they can get somebody who could slot into the top 9, I don't know if it would be worth the ask. But okay, anything left to say on the Atlantic Division aside from Tampa Bay is just unbelievable?
No, we'll see how much Ottawa wants to give Colorado the number 1 pick. So let's see.
They're doing a pretty good job at it. But, I am very happy for you because the Red Wings have now lost 3 in a row. Yes. And they are inching ever closer to the last spot in the league, which 2 points out from Ottawa right now. And the Wings get to play Nashville tomorrow night, which, it's Monday night right now. So probably another loss in the column there for Detroit. So, lose for Hughes is what I say. Let's move to the Metro. Islanders lead the division. Shocking Islanders, 72 points, 5 points up on the Caps. The Caps with 67 points. Then you've got Columbus at 65, Pittsburgh 63, Carolina 52, and we'll just say the Philadelphia Flyers, who are, they're just 9-0-1 in their last 10. They are now only 6 points away from the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are 3-6-1 in their last 10. So it's actually gearing up for a little race here. I would say that there's at least 4 teams, vying for these spots. 5 teams, I guess, vying for these spots. I think that the Islanders, the way they're going, I don't know if anyone's going to catch them the way they're playing. They're just playing so methodically. I don't see them really dipping much. They might not finish first, but I don't see them finishing outside the top 3 in this division.
No, I would agree. I think Barry Trotz has got them moving like a well-oiled machine right now. And you look at the rest of the teams in this division, and the goals against is staggering. The next closest team is 30 more goals against with the Carolina Hurricanes than the Islanders. And it's crazy to talk like that, especially that it's Carolina over anybody else. But they're not giving up much. And so maybe get a little bit more scoring going, and this team could easily finish at the top, but the top 3 is more than likely for this team right now.
Yeah, anyone we ever talked about for the Islanders being dealt like an Eberle, and they're going nowhere. The Islanders are going to hold on to this group. I think they're gonna see what happens here, because I think with this new coaching group, they're going, okay, everything's changed. So fascinating to see. The Washington Capitals, they were tops in this division until the Islanders overtook them. They were 3-5-2 in their last 10. Kind of struggling right now, but you've got to expect this team kind of wakes up. I think this is just kind of a, all right, we're in first. Let's not give everything we've got right now. We know how to win. We can kind of turn it on. I do think that there's some veteran wisdom at times during the year where it just is wise to you're still trying to win games, but if you lose some, it's okay. You don't need to set records to win the Stanley Cup. So to me, this team just kind of humming along. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think this is a team to me who could definitely go out and make a top 9 forward acquisition at the deadline. I think they would love to get their hands on, maybe a Zuccarello or even Kevin Hayes from the Rangers, perhaps. But Andrei Burakovsky, we'll see how long he stays in Washington if he continues his career there. I like this team, and I think they'll put it all together come playoff times. I know they've had their ups and downs this season, and it seems like, to me, the funny story to me is Tom Wilson right now. I think, when he got back from his suspension and played on that top line with Ovi, it seemed like he was scoring a goal every single night. He was just on fire. And, I mean, lately you look at his last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, his last 11 games, and he's only got, 3 points. So, maybe he works it out. Maybe he figures it out and starts scoring a little bit more, and this team gets right back in it. But for now, I think this team is probably going to coast along right there at that 1-2 spot and finish the end of the year right there. Okay, now the Columbus Blue Jackets, they actually fell to the bottom wild card spot at one point, and they've won 3 in a row. So they've managed to pull themselves back up into third in this division. But my guess is that Columbus and Pittsburgh, I mean, maybe Carolina here, they're playing much better as of the last 20 games as well, who's only a point back of Pittsburgh for the wild card spot, only 3 points back from the third spot in the division. Who out of these teams do you see ending up here? Does Carolina have a chance to actually make some noise in this division, or is this just kind of that, well, they were so far out of it, they lowered expectations, and here they come, winning games because now they're loose, and then suddenly, oh, we're in the we're right on the door of the playoffs, and then you get back to holding that stick a little tighter. Yeah, I honestly think out of these teams, Carolina could make a little bit of noise. To me, it really all depends on how aggressive they want to be at the deadline, right? Because, all season, last year, we talk about their abundance of defensemen. They have, I think, 8 NHL caliber defensemen, and they could easily move one of them. Are they willing to do that to bring in, a top 6 forward? Will they be aggressive like that towards the deadline? Because to me, goal scoring is a problem right now. And I think if they can bring in a forward who can put up some points, maybe say a Gustav Nyquist, for example, this really could propel this team, because to me, Columbus is the one team out of these 3, too, that I worry most about. And, we talked about the 2 big free agent names coming up this summer, Bobrovsky and Panarin. And I think, a couple days ago, Panarin switched agents, came out and said that I'm not talking contract till and I want to test the free agent market, this summer. So, is Columbus just going to hang on to him and consider him their deadline acquisition, or are they going to not want to be another John Tavares and get something for him at the deadline? Because I do think if he is moved at the deadline, this team could slip pretty quick. Yeah, at the same time, I think this team they'll still make the playoffs without him. I think that if you trade him, you're probably getting a roster player back anyways, because probably a lot of teams can't take on all the salary. Maybe, but it seems to me that Columbus would look and go, we have a team now. Like, we don't want to trade him for something that is going to develop 3 years from now. We want something now. And so it's going to take the right trading partner to kind of bring in maybe a couple pieces that could maybe still slot into their top 6. And so I wonder how much they would really fall down, especially if they were able to get some depth you never know how much of a difference one guy is from the other. And of course, Panarin is head and shoulders above most other just your run-of-the-mill top six type of guys. But at the same time, other guys are still going to produce somewhat. Maybe at 70% of what Panarin might bring, but it may still be enough, especially if Bobrovsky kind of figures himself out. We'll see if he signs an extension. That's kind of up in the air. If they could figure out their goaltending situation, maybe it would take off a lot of tension in the room just from that, and then trade Panarin, and then maybe they stabilize. And I see this team as a playoff team, but I mean somebody's got to miss, right? So. And you're looking at the Atlantic, and it looks like 4 teams from the Atlantic are going to go, and so you're only got 4 teams from the Metro that are going to go too, and so somebody's got to be the odd man out. I just can't see Carolina holding it together long enough to really make this a legitimate run.
Okay, now let me ask you, what do you think about Carter Hart and the Flyers right now? They're hot.
Yes, currently down 2-0. We're mid game right now, right? So down 2-0. So you got chances are they're going to lose to Pittsburgh. Of course, I might be wrong, but they may lose to Pittsburgh. That moves Pittsburgh up, and it's just going to shove Philadelphia down. Carolina plays Ottawa tomorrow, so there's 2 points in the bag for Carolina. It's just you're moving up and up and up, and I just don't think that Philadelphia, even with this great run, I mean, they were able to beat the Anaheim Ducks 6-2, but everyone's been beating the Anaheim Ducks 6-2. I think that once again, this pressure of you guys are actually in the race, it's gonna maybe take a little bit of a step backwards again. I mean, you're not going to win 10 in a row or 9 out of 10 for the rest of the year, and so ultimately, I think that it's just a little If maybe they had made a coaching change earlier or had just made it in the off season, we might be seeing a much better team. But I don't think. I think it's too little, too late. Let's keep this moving and move to the Western Conference. Dealer's choice: Pacific or Central. Where do you want to start?
Let's go Pacific.
The Pacific Division. All right. So the Calgary Flames, 73 points. The San Jose Sharks have marched valiantly back, are now only 1 point out of the division lead, winning 5 in a row, and they're 7-3 in their last 10. The Vegas Golden Knights trail by a good margin, 66 points, and then the Vancouver Canucks 9 points behind them. So the Vegas Golden Knights kind of securely in that 3 spot. Looks like that's likely where they'll finish. It's not looking great for a Vancouver who, of course, I mean, let's be honest, everyone in the Western Conference is like still somehow in it. Even the Anaheim Ducks, who have fallen, they fired Randy Carlyle finally. I swear Bob Murray had something out for Randy Carlyle. He's just, I'm not firing you. You're going to work. You're going to work and keep losing for me. And now, of course, the general manager, now the coach of the team, so he's pulling a Pat Quinn down there and being everything.
Old school.
Yeah. So I mean, Anaheim's so far down there, but you got to think Vancouver only 2 points out of a wild card spot, so they do have a chance. St. Louis coming on strong right now, winning 6 in a row, 7-2-1 in their last 10. So it's going to be tough to catch them. Minnesota, I think, is the team that's vulnerable. Maybe Vancouver, but my money's still maybe on Colorado to figure this thing out. But that's a different division. So it looks to me like this division's pretty set in terms of 1, 2, 3. Do you think Calgary holds on, or do you think that San Jose is just not going to be stopped?
No, I think San Jose is not going to be stopped. I think they listened to my podcast at the beginning of the year when I predicted they would finish top in this division. And they're like, you know what? We can't disappoint OT Hockey Talk.
There you go. Can't disappoint Justin.
No. So I do think there's something to be said for the experience. I think that San Jose has guys with a little bit more veteran presence. And not only that, too, I mean, San Jose's been holding on to the number 2 spot most of the year while Martin Jones has been playing just mediocre, right? So you get him playing a little bit better or more to where he usually has been for the rest of the season, and they're going to easily take this top spot. I think, well, I shouldn't say easily. Calgary will put up a fight, but I do think when push comes to shove, I will give San Jose the nod here to finish number 1, and Calgary will just barely slip into number 2, and it'll be a great first round matchup with Vegas and Calgary.
Yeah, give it a mark it on your calendar. March 31st, the San Jose Sharks play the Calgary Flames. That'll be a big game in that division. I think that the way that Calgary was playing early on, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Calgary's 6-2-2 in their last 10. It's not like they're slipping or anything. They're
Right.
this isn't happening because they've played poorly. I just think when I look at the Calgary Flames, I see some weaknesses. I'm still not totally confident in their goaltending. Rittich has played fine. Mike Smith's played fine. I know they can score goals. It's just down the stretch, goals become harder and harder to score. And so that's where, to me, San Jose has so much depth that it just seems like they'll be able to, in the long run, overtake Calgary. I think you're right. Calgary, Vegas, great first-round matchup. It'll be fun. Although it would be fun to see San Jose, Vegas rematch, this time with of course, Erik Karlsson in the mix. But any chance Vancouver? Do you think Vancouver will make the play as we shift to the Central? Of course, we can open it up. Vancouver, any shot that they make the playoffs and slide into that bottom wild card spot, you think?
Boy, they're going to push. But I think ultimately they will end up being last year's St. Louis and probably lose the last game or two of the season and fall right out. But they're going to make a good effort, and I just don't think with that young group of forwards they have and lack of firepower outside of their top line, I just don't think they have enough to really overtake teams that are pushing right now, like St. Louis and like you talked about, maybe Colorado, who finally gets their act together and gets out there and puts up a better fight.
Yeah, let's take a peek here at the Central. Of course, Winnipeg leading the way, 73 points, then Nashville at 71. Those two teams kind of on a plane in their own in the Central. And then you've got a grouping of 3 teams. You have the Dallas Stars with 61, the Blues now with 59, this is where we expected the Blues to be, I think. I think we expected the Blues to make the playoffs, or at least come pretty darn close to it. I mean, at one point they were last place in the West, or second to last place in the West. They were terrible, and now they've just been absolutely rolling. Tarasenko with a hat trick last night, or maybe it was the night before.
Last night, yeah.
So, that is very encouraging. If you're a Blues fan, you got to go, finally, Tarasenko is rolling, because early on in the season it was not looking good for him in the way that he was playing, and it's always encouraging when your top goal scorer starts scoring like himself again. And then you have in the 5th spot Minnesota, who has had a good start to the season and has kind of faltered, 4-4-2 in their last 10. Probably a team that is going to continue to fall due to the ACL tear for Mikko Koivu. That hurts. One of the better defensive centers in the league. And you just got to think, with the surgence of St. Louis, and maybe if Colorado can figure themselves out, that they could overtake the Minnesota Wild. What's your take on? We'll start with the bottom of this division. What's your take on what you think teams will do and where you think they'll finish?
Yeah, I think again, teams like Chicago and Colorado, they're going to push. I think Chicago, they've got enough veteran guys who've been there before, again, who are not going to just give up and call it quits here for the rest of the season.
They have won 7 in a row.
Yeah, they've been pretty hot. Well, Patrick Kane just is lights out right now. And then they just signed Delia to a new 3-year deal, which, $1 million a season for this guy.
Yes, we tweeted that out, and you did earlier.
Yeah. He'll be quite the bargain, I think. But Chicago really all depends on the goaltending, if it can hold up. And I think if they could still up front play with fire, they'll make a push. But again, I think the teams at the top and right there in the middle, I think, are going to be a little bit too much. Chicago dug themselves too big of a hole early on. I think they're just going to be it's going to be too difficult for them, I think, to jump 4 teams basically, or 3 teams to get up in there. Colorado, on the other hand, I think they've got enough talent up front, just like Chicago, but I think their goaltending could be, a bigger difference maker down the stretch. I think Varlamov, if he can get his act together, he could really turn around. And they've got some good pieces on defense where, maybe Chicago doesn't. We'll see how that plays out. But to me, I think either one of those two teams, or even both those teams, really, could be missing the playoffs right now. Minnesota, to me, I think is the biggest wild card. Like you talked about, missing Koivu for the rest of the season is going to really hurt them. And I think, are they going to keep falling like this? Because let's remember, at the beginning of the season, I predicted St. Louis in the number 3 spot and Minnesota down towards the bottom of the division again. So we'll see if everybody's been listening to us lately. So we'll see how that one plays out.
Yes, the league listens to you, Justin. The Minnesota Wild. The other thing, though, to consider is early on Matt Dumba was out for a good amount of time too. So this team is probably going to hum along right around where they are here. They're going to be in the race. It's mind-boggling to think that Colorado could finish last in this division. That's what's crazy. Is it? The way that top line plays, it is sad that they don't have. I don't know what. Mix them up. Put guys on different lines. Like, isn't it time? Isn't it time to separate those guys a little bit? I think
tough.
that it's the same thing as. There's 3 of them, so it's a little bit. But it's like Dallas. You're like, well, do we split up Ben and Sagan and Radulov, or do we keep them together because no one else can seem to get going unless they're all together? And it just, I think that if they aren't able to split them up and get goal scoring, like continuing goal scoring from those guys, even though they're not playing together, see, me as a general manager, I'm going, great, let's get Rantanen in his own line. McKinnon doesn't need him. Let's keep McKinnon and Landeskog together. Let's put Rantanen down. I don't care who plays with him. Let's see how much better he makes guys around him, and then let's find out what he's really worth, because he's going to want a lot of money, and he's got to play with 2 really good players all year. And so I want to see what he does separate from those guys. You're not winning anyways. You might as well do some experiments. That'd be my take on them. Let's move a little higher in the division. This St. Louis, Dallas. Do you think that Dallas seems to me that they're kind of the ugly stepchild of the Central Division, where they're good some nights, they're bad some nights. They could be last in this division. They could be third. Where do you see that? First off, do you see them making the playoffs, and then do you see them competing at all with what would probably be Winnipeg or Nashville first round matchup?
Yeah, I do think they are a playoff team. In my opinion, I do think they are going to end up being a wild card team. I think St. Louis is just rolling along, playing way too good right now. I think they'll unseat them for that number 3 spot. And Dallas is playing, like I said, San Jose or possibly Winnipeg, Nashville. And I think when you go up against even Calgary, any one of those 4 teams, I just don't think Dallas has enough firepower up front to really compete. Now, yes, Ben Bishop has been playing lights out, and so has Khudobin this season. And come playoff time, I do think that Bishop could steal them a game or two. But when you look at the teams, at the top here at the West, they can roll 3 lines on you no problem and score all 3 lines. And Dallas, outside of Ben and Sagan and Radulov, it's bare. The cupboard's bare. And I think if Dallas wants any shot at going, even getting a second round matchup, they really need to go out and acquire somebody for a top 6 forward spot. Now, is it worth it? Is that going to be enough to really put you over the top? No, I don't think that makes them a Stanley Cup contender. So to me, I think if you're Dallas, maybe if you can find the right partner, the right move at the right price, yes, go make it. But, to me, I think they're in the playoffs in the wild card and they're out in the first round.
See, Dallas to me is a team that I think I said this before. They should be looking at Duchesne and Stone, 100%. Okay. Those 2 guys would fit well. I think that Mark Stone would be a fantastic addition, because you can play him with anybody and they'll play well. Duchesne may be an even better fit, because then you can go Sagan and Ben, and then you can go Duchesne and Radulov, and that may be a better 1-2 punch in that sense. But to me, Dallas needs to make a bold move. They haven't made a bold move since acquiring Tyler Seguin. That's the last really bold move that the Dallas Stars have made. And so I think that it's time. I mean, it's time to take a risk. It's time to put something out there. I mean, I understand being patient, but there is a time when you go, well, Ben isn't getting any younger. I mean, Ben is almost 30 years old. And so you can't expect that Jamie Benn's going to be able to play at a really, really high elite level till he's 35, especially the way that he plays. So I think that the time is now for the Dallas Stars. And I think that if they did have a little bit more depth, there is a chance that they could compete with Nashville or Winnipeg. I mean, to me, Nashville's more vulnerable this year. They've lost some depth at the forward position. Defensively, they haven't been able to stay as healthy, and so you wonder about that. And then you've got to, at the same time, wonder about goaltending. Pekka Rinne, he's played really well in the playoffs. He's also played really bad in the playoffs. And you don't know what Saros is going to look like if he gets the nod in the playoffs too. So to me, Nashville is, as far as the teams where everyone says, oh, this team could definitely win the cup, they are the one team that is the most vulnerable. And I think they proved it last year. I mean, we saw, Winnipeg beat them in the second round, and that's where this division's so tough that you're going to have to go against really good teams early on. But even so, would Nashville beat San Jose? Does Nashville beat Winnipeg? I think that Nashville would even have a difficult time with Dallas because Dallas would be able to, they can throw that top line out. They have that high-end star power that Nashville maybe doesn't have. So we'll see what happens there.
I agree. I think, like you mentioned, Duchesne and Stone, I think if anybody is in play here for Dallas, I think Duchesne would be the best pickup, in my opinion, just because I think getting to put Ben down on that second line, maybe free him up against teams' top defensive pairings might be a little bit better for him. And you might get to, get him ramped up again scoring-wise, and which would be great for this team. How
about Kyle Turris for Matt Duchesne? Would you do it?
If I'm Nashville? Well, I think doesn't Turris have a modified no movement clause or trade clause?
Yeah, would he go back?
I don't think he goes back. I think he knows he's in a good situation right now and a chance to win a cup and compete every year, at least for the next few years. And I think if you're looking at Ottawa, there's no. Well, actually, he doesn't have any.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't have any clauses in there. So if you're,
he makes exactly the same amount as Matt Duchesne.
Yeah, I just don't think Ottawa really wants him back. I think there was too many issues, and I think he'd go back to his old self and maybe say, "Oh gosh, I'm going to hold out."
No, that was with Arizona, and that was a contract thing. That was when he was in Arizona. No.
Yeah.
There was no issues in Ottawa. He wanted to stay in Ottawa. He liked Ottawa a lot.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not saying that it could happen. I mean, Nashville may go, well, we've got 6 years guaranteed with this guy. They may only make a trade for Duchesne if they have him on an extension. And would Nashville be willing to pay Duchesne $9 million? Because that's what I think it's going to cost a team in free agency. Probably pay him $9 million. So I think,
and you got to think Ellis has got his new deal kicking in next year too. So
yeah, would you want to pay him as much as PK Subban? I don't know. So especially when you've got Kevin Fiala and Colton Sissons, Ryan Hartman. You've got a couple guys who are RFAs, and then
Yossi
in a couple years. Yep, a UFA Yossi, and so his freaking steal of a $4 million deal is gonna expire soon. So we'll see. I mean, they may be done after acquiring Brian Boyle. So we'll see. Ultimate pick for the Central Division. Who wins it?
I still think Winnipeg holds on. I think they've got a little bit more elite firepower up front. And, when you talk about goaltending on the back end, I think Hollaback's starting to get it together. If he continues to play, at a decent level and with the amount of talent they have up front. And I do think Winnipeg is primed to go out and try to acquire some sort of top six forward to fill in, maybe a center again, go out and get another Paul Stastny replacement and see what happens there. But to me, I think Winnipeg's a team, like you talked about. I think Nashville, they lack that elite guy outside of Forsberg and Johansson. There's really no elite guys to score goals for them. So we'll see.
Well, Arvidsson. I'd put Arvidsson's up there, but yeah, but they don't have the superstar for sure.
Right.
Winnipeg, it'll be. I'm excited for this year's trade deadline because I think there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of really high end players who could get dealt. So it'll be fun. We've only have 2 more weeks until trade deadline. Let us know what you thought of our playoff race analysis as we move towards the trade deadline. You can tweet at us at OT Hockey Talk. Justin, any final thoughts on this playoff race before we call it an evening?
Lose for Hughes. That's all I'm saying.
Lose for Hughes. There are a few teams that are doing really well at doing that. I actually, the one team who may surprise people to going and losing for him are the New Jersey Devils. They're not too far out of it, and the Kings are doing a really good job at pulling ahead, so they don't get him. Why would you want a guy like that in Los Angeles? It's such a waste. So, all right. Well, that is our show. We hope that you have a great week. We'll talk to you later in the week, and our next show we will. We said we were going to do the biggest bust this time. We didn't have a chance to really plan a lot, so we've got that for our next show. Biggest busts. Hit us up on Twitter and let us know who your biggest busts of the season are, and we'll get those in the next show. We'll talk to you guys soon.